And that was by far the hardest one because I just was not expecting that at all. You know, all the research I'd done said one miscarriage, super common, two in a row, not common at all. So that one hit me like a ton of bricks. There's not that many stay-at-home moms these days because people go back to work. So it's like an identity of its own. It's like it's not seen by society as a real job, or it's seen as an easy job, but actually it's
What is success to you? My name is Francesca Pisano, and you are listening to Ordinary SuperPeople, Redefining Success. Hello, we're here today with my friend Sarah.
hello.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. I'm so excited.
Of course. Me
Right.
too.
So introductions first. Would you like to tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 31 years old. I live in a little place called Broken Hill, which is in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Australia. Yeah, I have three kids and I don't know, I'm a stay-at-home mum at the moment. Yeah, that sums me up.
Right. You're a full-time mom now, but you had a very different life before, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did. Well, yeah. So when I left school, I moved to France. I was an au pair for a year. That's where we met.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I lived just outside of Paris. And then after that, I loved it so much. And I wasn't ready to leave France. So I figured that the easiest way to stay in France was to study. So then I went and got a student visa and I studied art for a year. Um, and then as much as I loved it, I hated being a poor student. So I thought I would go back to Australia and get a job. So I became a flight attendant. And then yeah, that's where I met my husband. So I was a flight attendant for about 5 years, and then I had my first little boy. And I've been off on maternity leave ever since. So I've gone on to, yeah, I guess we moved around a bit as well because my husband's a pilot now. And yeah, since then, obviously we had two more kids, and a little girl and another little boy. So yeah.
Tell me, why is it that initially made you leave Australia?
Um, I guess, well, my family is quite international. And yeah, I guess, I don't know. When I was in school, because I studied French, and then in my class, they had someone uh, contact a French teacher, and they said, because they were an au pair and they were leaving their job and that she was looking for another au pair. So I guess that's what put it in my, sparked the interest. And then I was like, yeah, cool. I'm going to do a gap year and I'm going to go over to France and be an au pair.
Did your core family support you in your choices?
Yeah, that's something that I really respect with my parents. They, I feel like it is a pretty big thing to for your kid to move overseas when I'd only just turned 18. But I think because of my mum's upbringing, she went to boarding school when she was 12 years old and they were like, commuting on the flight from Hong Kong to Australia by themselves. I feel like that played a big role in it. So I guess it's not really a big thing for my family, but I do appreciate that they were always, yeah, like fully supportive of that. yeah, because I think it's great to get life experience.
Let's talk about your life in France. How was it to actually having to speak French on a daily basis?
I was like, I failed French in school. And I guess I did have, some sort of understanding, but when I went to France, I could not speak French. um, and I think though you have to be immersed in it because like there has to be a need as well to learn it. And when you're around it all the time, then for me, it's harder to not learn it than it is to learn it. um, and I guess that au pair setting too was very um, so I was an au pair for a kid that was 16 years old. So he like, well, it was pretty much I was employed to teach him English because I worked out cheaper than an English tutor. Um, so I had a lot of free time. And I guess that allowed me to get French friends as well. Yeah, no. So I guess I just immersed myself into it. And I have a love for languages too.
Speaking of your French, your passion for learning, and you are a very creative person. You decided to study art. So how was your experience as a foreign student?
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. Although I was a foreign student, the way that I did it was like a local. Um, I didn't get any special treatment. I wasn't allowed a dictionary or anything. And I remember that was like my biggest achievement with the art. I mean, with that whole year, because I mean, some of my grades were pretty good, but in French, my only goal was to get a 10, which was an average grade. But so I started out, I think I got like a 7 or an 8 to start out with. And like my last submission, I got a 10 and I was so proud because there were people in the class who were native French speakers and they didn't even get a 10. And I was just like super proud of this 10. It wasn't like a great mark, but it was my pride and joy because I was like, yes, I'm marked like everyone else and I'm considered average. And I thought I was really proud of myself.
So after 1 year, you decided to go back to Australia. Why?
Well, I mean, it was heavily because it was too hard to get a working visa in France. So the easiest way, and I was very poor and I just wanted to start earning money. And my boyfriend at the time wanted to go to Australia. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Um, it was a bit of a hard adjustment when I first went back, actually, just because I missed speaking French so much as well.
Now, you're a flight attendant for 5 years, then your life changes again.
Obviously in that time I met my husband. He was a flight attendant as well. So then we got married, we did lots of traveling, and then we wanted to have kids. Like I've always wanted to have kids. So yeah, I worked up to 38 weeks when I was pregnant with Leo, which they actually had to look like when I could stop flying because I was the first person to work until the max amount. I think you can fly up to 36 weeks. And I think about it now, I was laughing, like, giving the safety briefing to people in case of an emergency, and I'm there with this huge big belly. I'm glad there was no emergency because I don't know how useful I would have been. Um, but yeah, so then I became a mom. And that was both, I mean, it's amazing, but like it was also like getting hit by a semi trailer, like I just remember the sleep deprivation was just next level.
Tell me about the challenges that you encounter since becoming a mother.
Yeah, well, that was the first one because it just honestly felt like you realize why sleep deprivation is such an effective form of torture because it felt like being tortured. You'd finally get him to sleep, lie down, and then like 5 minutes later, wake up. Yeah, it's long nights and just learning. I mean, like anyone learning for the first time, you're in a job for the first time, except nobody helps you. Nobody gives you a manual, like big learning curve there. It got better, obviously, like, but it was tough for both of us. I think, and especially from going from no kids to a kid, your life changes so much. You go from having all your time to yourself to never having any time. And um
How was your mental health affected by having your first child?
yeah, with Leo, I felt like it wasn't too bad. It was pretty good. I guess because it's something that I'd wanted for so long. And I was finally, doing that. I mean, at the same time, I guess it was more of a bit of like an identity issue, or maybe not even at that stage actually, because I was so happy to be a mom. It wasn't so bad, but we were trying, because I've always wanted to have 4 kids. And so I guess after Leo, we were trying pretty much straight away to have another one. And then it wasn't happening. We weren't falling pregnant. And I remember it had been about 6 months, and I was like, oh, okay. So I went to the doctors at that point, because 6 months is quite a while to be trying. And I felt like that was very consuming for me. Like it was so important for me. So every month, it was very big highs and lows for anyone who's been trying to conceive. It's just, yeah, it's just all consuming. And when it's time to try again, you get like so excited and you think about the potential of having this baby, and then you get your period and it's just like the lowest low, because the baby you wanted that you didn't get. And especially when I think then when you're in that scene of people like other mothers as well, or your friends falling pregnant, it can be really tough. And so that was really hard for me. But then I think on the 7th month we fell pregnant, but we lost that baby. That was hard. But yes, I guess at that point too, I thought, I did quite a lot of research, and miscarriages are very common. So I was like, okay, well, this is our bad luck, over and done with. And then in that time, then we moved to Townsville. And then I think it was the first month that we were in Townsville, I fell pregnant, and I just felt like, I love Townsville so much. I felt like, we lived in such a holiday destination. And when I got the positive pregnancy test, I was like, this is perfect. Like everything is falling into place, so happy. Like didn't even have anything else on my radar. And then we lost that one. And that was by far the hardest one, because I just was not expecting that at all. All the research I'd done said 1 miscarriage, super common, 2 in a row, not common at all. So that one hit me like a ton of bricks. And then also I guess it prompted like, okay, why is this happening? Like 2 in a row is not common. So I was going to the doctors a lot. Then COVID hit. So dealing with that as well. And I guess that then was really hard on me with my mental health, because Nick my husband was still working. He was like, everyone else was working from home, but not him. He was like working more hours. And then like there was no mums group, no, you couldn't even go to parks and things like that. There was like nothing to do. So I was just like stuck at home with an 18-month-old. And that was like, yeah, I remember it being really tough.
It must have been hard to go through all that. Did you receive any support during that tough time?
I guess, well, I had a little makeshift mums group that we had up there. So after the first like initial 6-week lockdown, we did sort of catch up. But apart from that, not really. I remember going to quite a few doctor's appointments. But yeah, no, I guess it was just, reaching out to family and friends, and yeah, chatting online and things like that, just to that sort of support. One of the mums that I met up in Townsville, she was also going through infertility, and she had had a miscarriage as well. So I was really close with her. I found my own little network. And actually, no, I had two mums. So yeah, I found it really helpful to talk to people who were going through the same thing. Yeah.
Apart from peer support, did you receive any medical support?
No, no, nothing. In hindsight, I should have. I think it would have been really helpful. Yeah, like how it, going to see a professional is always helpful. But yeah, I guess I wasn't really, I don't know, I just didn't really think about it.
You managed to overcome this dark period of your life.
Yeah.
Eventually, your baby girl came.
Yeah. Well, so we actually we had three miscarriages. But it was weird because the miscarriages are like they were all within 6 months, and then we had 6 months of nothing. And I always say, like, I feel like it's harder to go through like infertility than it is on some degree, having a miscarriage, because people don't give you the same empathy. With a miscarriage, they're always like, I'm so sorry. Whereas with trying to conceive, they're like, oh, it'll happen when it happens, oh, you'll be fine, go on a holiday sort of thing. So that was really tough for me too, because I felt like I wasn't getting the validation that I needed, but then, yeah, I guess I remember we were going around holidays. My parents were coming up because it was finally like we could, actually do stuff. And yeah, like a few days after Christmas, I got the positive pregnancy test. And I don't know, there was just something in me. I felt like I knew that that time it was good. But in saying that, it was very much I was also very much just struggling with, when you go through it three times, it's like you're just almost waiting for it to happen again. So I was in denial for a lot of it. I remember when I was 12 weeks pregnant with her, talking to someone saying, yeah, we're trying for another baby, but I was 12 weeks pregnant, but I just couldn't. It was like I didn't want to allow myself to get hurt again. But yeah, so her pregnancy honestly it was tough, just like coming to terms with it. I didn't want to say anything to anyone for ages either. But then yeah, she was here finally. And it was amazing. Well, yeah, it was. It was really good. She was a bit tough. Like we had to spend 5 days at the hospital because she wasn't breathing when she was born. But other than that, it was okay. But then I guess, which is quite common with women who go through infertility. It's quite common for them to get postnatal depression, because I think you build something up in your head so much. It's like being pregnant and having the baby will solve all of your problems. So then when it happens and there are problems still, it's like you've built it up so much so that the fall can be quite larger, I guess. And I think, yeah, that's what happened with me, because I was just like so overwhelmed. I felt like I was so torn between my two kids and their needs, and like I couldn't meet them both. One was like so physically needing all of my attention, and the other one was like emotionally needing my attention. And how do you put one above the other? They're both valid. And yeah, I felt like I really struggled. I think also because Nick went back to work after like 2.5 weeks. So, I was really thrown in the deep end. I didn't have like a lot of family support. So yeah, no, it was also a tough time. I guess when I describe my journey, like it's probably that whole period, when they have seasons of motherhood, I feel like pretty much since becoming a mum, it was in like a dark winter all through. When you have a newborn, that's a winter stage. And then we were trying to conceive, and that was a winter stage. Then I had her, but it was like postnatal depression. So that was winter. And then we were trying for another one and it wasn't happening. So that was another winter. And I felt like when we were trying for our third, I was just like, I was like, really? This is going to happen every time? Like, because it took, I think, 7 months before we fell pregnant with him. And, I felt like a lot of the emotions that I'd sort of suppressed from having my daughter all surfaced again because I never really dealt with them because I was just too focused on getting through the pregnancy. I just had to have her and then, I guess maybe deal with it, but I didn't deal with it because I had a newborn. So I was dealing with other stuff. So then when we were trying to conceive again, it was just like, it all came back. And that's when it was really bad. I got to the point where I was like, I'm not okay. I remember, it's made me upset just thinking about it because I feel like I'm a very like bubbly person and like quite smiley as it is. And I remember Nick was asking me if like just saying, "Are you okay?" And I just burst out in tears, which was so unlike me, and every time he was asking me, I was like, I'm not okay. And that's when I knew like I had to go and see someone. And I did, and it was really good. But we were also we were really poor at that at that point too. So I couldn't go back a whole heap. But I had a beautiful friend who was studying to be a psychologist, and she's very much in the motherhood scene, motherhood, birth, everything like that. And I was just chatting to her, and she obviously recognized that I needed help. And so she offered to do some matrescence sessions, which is for people who don't know what matrescence is, it's like adolescence, but for a mother, the act of becoming a mother and like the ever evolving, journey of motherhood. Because you're a different person when you have a newborn to when you have a 5-year-old to when you have a teenager sort of thing. So, yeah, and that I felt like that completely turned my life upside down for the better. Without her, I don't know where I would be. I learned so much about myself. And I guess it also kickstarted this huge drive for me to learn about, yeah, who I am and how I work and about motherhood. And yeah, because I get addressed like maybe all the trauma, my childhood trauma and things like that. So that really helped me. Yeah, and I guess then we also fell pregnant with with our third. And then we had him. And then after that, so it was, yeah. My husband got a job in Broken Hill. So then he actually moved before we did, had to pack up our entire house, 10 years worth of stuff with 3 little kids. One being like our youngest, Eden, was 6 weeks old when Nick left. And yeah, that period was really hard. I was not doing well at all. I was really missing Nick. And yeah, just the logistics of everything that I had on my plate. My parents were amazing during that time though. They really helped me out. But yeah, at that point I was like, I'm done being a stay-at-home mom because I wasn't doing the kids justice. I wasn't doing myself justice when it's something that I've wanted my entire life. So that was a really big thing for me. And then we came to Broken Hill. And it was so weird because suddenly I felt like I had that village that people were talking about, like this whole time I felt like I'd been going through motherhood alone. And then suddenly, because Nick has a lot of time off here, plus like it's a very, it's a country mentality. We have really good friends here. Plus, like you see the same people at the play groups and things. So you get those connections, which I thrive on, wholesome connections. So I finally felt like I had a village, and that's since being here, I like is the first time in 5.5 years now that I feel like I'm in a summer of motherhood. I actually have a life outside of being a mom, and I'm only able to do that because I have Nick home and I have that support, because without that, being a mother, you're never meant to mother alone. So yeah, so I guess that's where I'm at now. I mean, I'm a big believer of everything happens for a reason. And as horrible as infertility was and the miscarriages and things, I feel like that humbled me so much. And I just I had so much personal growth, because I think when you go through something like that, you have so much empathy for other people, because before that, it's like, what do you say? Or, like, yeah, it sucks sort of thing. But I think when you go through it, you know exactly the right things to say. And I don't know, just this sense of belonging, because it's like, yep, girl, I've been there too. I know how shit it is. Um, and I think even with postnatal depression, I think just saying it, I think I'm very open with my journey. And I think that can often, like, I talk about it all the time, and I feel like when I talk about it, then it sparks other people to talk about it, because it's really hard being a mom, especially in the society that we live in, because I feel like so much is on the mums. I mean, a lot of people go back to work as well, which is a whole nother kettle of fish, juggling mom life and working and stuff. But I think a lot of stay-at-home mums, there's not that many stay-at-home mums these days, because people go back to work. So it's like an identity of its own. It's like people don't necessarily understand how hard it is, because you're working 24/7. But then the people who work are like, yeah, but you're not working. It's not seen by society as a real job. Or it's seen as an easy job, but actually it's so hard having kids constantly on you and screaming and constantly meeting everyone else's needs but your own, and never getting a break sort of thing, never being able to do something by yourself, always having someone with you. So I felt like I really struggled with that, the identity of it, and just feeling seen, and people not understanding how much I struggled as well. Yeah, I think like talking about it for me is so, so incredibly important, because just the awareness, like, it makes you feel not so alone. And, if I can help anyone else feel not so alone, then my job is done, because I've been in the pits of the depths of the darkness, and I don't want anyone else to feel like that. So yeah, I think it's really important to open up that conversation.
What is happiness to you?
Oh, for me, at this current moment in time, I guess, is having my family. I think having good relationships, healthy relationships with my family, but also with myself. Because I feel like for so long my needs were neglected, and I thought I thought that was what a mother did. But I learned that my kids' happiness is dependent on my happiness. If I'm not happy, they're not going to be happy, So it's really important for me to meet my own needs, and just learning about my own needs, because I guess I wasn't modeled that as a child. So learning that it's okay to take time for yourself, learning that it's okay to, have activities outside of being a mum, and things like that. So I think, yeah, just having like healthy relationships with everyone, and with my body as well, because, a lot, I put on 40 kilos since having Leo. And that was a really big thing for me. I didn't have a healthy relationship with food. And I've started losing the weight, and I've lost like 32 kilos so far, which I'm super duper proud of. And I feel like, yeah, just feeling good in myself again. I've started playing soccer, which I hadn't played soccer since I was like 6 or 7 years old. And that is something I'm really proud of as well. So just having healthy relationships with my body, just myself, and my mental health, and my family. Yeah, that would be happiness to me.
Did you have a definition of success when you were younger? And has this changed after all your experiences? What is success to you now?
Yeah, I definitely think when I was younger, it was more superficial. I think it was, like, have a good job, get a house, get married and have kids sort of thing. I think that was my definition of success. And I've learned, yeah, a lot I mean, yes, obviously having kids for me is very important, but I also realize, which I want so much to instill in my kids, that, you know, like having kids is not the be all and end all, because there are so many people who choose not to have children. There are so many people who can't have children. There are so many people who want to have kids but haven't found the right person, you know, and I don't want it to be like an expectation on them. Because there was a large part of me that when I was going through the infertility that felt like I wasn't good enough because I couldn't do the one thing that I was meant to, sort of thing. But you know, like women are so much more than, you know, we're meant for so much more than just to have babies. So I think, yeah, that would be like a huge thing. And then, I mean, the rest so superficial, right? Doesn't matter what you do. And I think that's also maybe why I struggled with my identity as a stay-at-home mum, because to society, it wasn't, I don't feel like it's very valued, as opposed to, you know, a paid profession. But for me, I've learned now, like, it doesn't matter what other people think. You know, I'm there for my babies. I'm there for them in the years that is so crucial to their development. And that's a choice that we have made. And it definitely impacts us financially, obviously, but that's a sacrifice that we're willing to make. I also recognize, though, that we're very, very privileged that we're able to make that decision, because a lot of people aren't in that position financially to only be able to survive off one wage. So yeah, I guess I've just learned like a whole lot of just meeting other people and learning and listening. You get to, yeah, work out what is important to you. And my idea of happiness and success has definitely changed. Yeah. I also think for me, when I pictured myself as a mother, this is what I pictured. You know, I pictured the whole, I guess, school age, where I can have conversations with the kids, and I love talking about, you know, their feelings, and I talk to them about mental health, and like I love being able to mold their minds, allowing them to be who they are, just change society almost, like with like things that are just meant for girls or just meant for boys. Like who decided that, you know? So we as parents get to change society through parenting, and I find that really, really cool. Yeah.
There's one last question that I've been asking everybody. And the question is, do you want to ask me a question?
Ooh. Put me on the spot. Um, well, if you could describe me in 3 words, what would the 3 words be?
Oh, nice. Okay. Probably bubbly, because I
Yeah.
think you are a very luminous person. You're very optimistic, and you're very contagious in your being funny and always cheerful. Maybe
Yeah, it's tough.
creative, but creative in a very broad way. So of course, I knew already about your art skills. You like to craft things, but also creative in a way that you have managed to always come up with new solutions to your issues. So creative in that way as well. I'm torn. I think I want to say resilient, because despite all the challenges, you still have a big smile on your face, and you were never discouraged, or when you were discouraged, when you were really feeling hopeless, because I'm sure you described your story. I'm sure you had plenty of those terrible moments, but you still managed to overcome those challenges thanks to your inner strength and the support of those who love you. You managed to thrive again, and yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's funny because I was thinking about like 3 words of how I would describe you as well. And one of them was also resilient.
No. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all that you shared, all your life journey, your challenges, your struggles. Thank you for being so open, and thank you for being so inspiring for other people who may be struggling in a similar way to what you have gone through. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for interviewing me. I feel very celebrated by you, and I'm sure everybody who you asked to do this would feel very celebrated. So thank you.
And thank you all for listening. Please feel free to share the story with all of your friends, family, colleagues, but especially with those who could use some extra support and inspiration. Help me spread the message. You can write your own definition of success. I'll see you soon with a new episode.